Hey everyone, and welcome to Advantage Point, the series where we unpack how smarter systems and sharper thinking create strategic advantage. This season, we're diving into scaling SaaS without breaking ops, because let's face it, growth can be thrilling, but it can also be brutal on operations. Now, here are a few stats to set the stage. 70% of SaaS leaders say that the biggest barrier to growth is operational bottlenecks, not demand. And founders who scale too fast without the right systems in place lose on average about 22% in annual revenue to churn, misfires, or downtime. But companies that allow ops with growth, they see about 40% revenue expansion than their peers. So operations aren't just back office, they're the growth engine. Now, joining me today is Ryan Estes, co-founder of KitCaster, a podcast booking agency helping founders and execs land high-value interviews, and Wildcast, a platform focused on performance podcast ads. He scaled from startup to acquisition by Mobust, and along the way built playbooks for managing growth without letting operations collapse. And that's why he's the man for the job, and that's why he's on the call today with us. So Ryan, thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to Advantage Point.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you very much for being here. Okay, so guys, you know the drill. Ryan doesn't know the questions they're going to be asking, so he's going to be talking straight from the head and from the heart. So we're going to get the raw filtered Ryan, or rather raw unfiltered Ryan. So he's completely in the hot seat here, but I'm pretty sure he'll smash this out of the park as he's a host himself and guest expert. Here we go. Right, okay. So Ryan, according to PwC, nearly 60% of SaaS companies say their growth stalls not because of customers, but because the ops can't keep up. Now, Ryan, you've seen hundreds of founders use podcasts as a growth channel. Why do you think scaling breaks ops so quickly for many SaaS teams?
Oh boy, why does scaling break ops teams? There's probably a lot of reasons. I try to think about when I get broken. So for reference, KitCaster over the last 5 years, we've worked with 800 different founders, CEOs, and leaders. So, we knew from very early on that we had a CAC, or not a CAC problem, but like a retention problem. And largely that's because there's a number of how many podcast interviews you're going to do. So if you're thinking about a subscription, it's like, boy, I'd love lifetime value to be 5 years, 10 years. You kind of, your mouth waters at like Netflix, who has like, basically unbeatable retention.
Sure.
But not everything is like that. So one thing that we worked on a lot was how do we retain clients? And it just might not been able to be fixed. And I'll come back to that. So what we knew early on is that if we have let's say on average, a 14-month retention rate, that man, we're a sales organization. We're going to need to keep a full pipe. We're going to need to keep bringing people in because it's really hard to get people on average past the 14-month mark. So for me, systematizing our acquisition funnels was priority number one, and when that breaks, it comes from a variety of different things. It's intimately tied. I guess we're talking about the RevOps whole program here, where revenue is really kind of like operations in a way, if you're like kind of systematizing how you're doing operation or you're doing prospecting. So oftentimes for me, it's if the let's say prospecting is broken, it's because I'm not running enough experiments with the marketing. I've gotten complacent. So I kind of like equate prospecting for clients kind of like mining for gold. So now I don't know anything about mining for gold, but I've seen some cartoons. So
As have I.
The way I've seen it is first you got to have a long beard and a big hat to be a prospector. But what they do is they'll dig and they'll find a thread of gold. And it's just in the rock in between somewhere. And there's just this thread of gold. And so you just follow that thread and you mine it until it's gone, and then it runs out and you kind of have to look around and be like, okay, where's the next kind of thread of gold? So for us, we found it in a bunch of different places. LinkedIn right in the very beginning was super hot. Like we were killing it on LinkedIn outbound, and then it started to run out. So and then I was in a position like, okay, let's pivot. Let's go try YouTube. We had a lot of success with YouTube. Then YouTube pivots. Then okay, let's invest into SEO. And so you're just kind of like riding these kind of threads, these ribbons of gold until you kind of run out. So if I'm thinking about from the RevOps perspective, why do the operations break? It's because I'm not working hard enough, trying hard enough, or running enough experiments. So, and that's just coming from like, I am an absolute systems and processes guy. So when you're looking at the whole rest of kind of the operations or fulfillment side, if you're not systematizing your production, then that's going to be your problem right away, and it's destined to fail. So I don't know if that answers your question in full, but oftentimes that's what's been the case for me.
It does, and it's leading me to a non-scripted question. So I've thought of one while you were speaking. Given of what you're saying, of two things. So do you find that it's cyclical in the sense where, like fashion, where what's in the 70s is now back in, if you know what I mean? So can you cycle back to previous gold streams or gold threads, like you say? And how much of your time do you spend trying to figure out the next gold thread, would you say?
You bet. So, since the acquisition, I've transitioned to head of growth. So now it's pretty much all I do is chase down the gold. And to your point, absolutely. LinkedIn kind of popped, and then it went away, and then it came back. So it's interesting to see, and you just kind of always have to be dabbling. I'm going to mix metaphors in this conversation. You have to forgive me, but I'm a fisherman.
All right.
So.
Okay.
I know
are
a
you
little
actually
something
fisherman,
about
or is that are you actually a fisherman?
I am actually a fisherman. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm from Colorado. So like if you
Right.
looked up Colorado in the dictionary, you see a picture of me in a flannel shirt, pickup truck, and fish and pole. Okay. So I'm true to the stereotype. I love fly fishing, and I really use it almost as like kind of like a language because in life. So if I'm thinking about prospecting, I'm thinking about like trying a different pattern in the fly. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I want to start out with a coachman. That's for me.
Yeah.
I'm always starting out with a coachman on the water for good luck. So similarly in business, I'm always going to start with cold outbound, because that refines my offer to a very tight pitch. And then from there, if nothing's hitting, then I start trying different flies. I try different patterns to see what's going to hit, so I think it's pretty much the majority of my job right now is to try different avenues and see what's working. Right now, what's really working really well is kind of founder-led initiatives. I think a lot of people talk about value first, and that really is the right way to do it,
Okay.
is to like just give, be a resource, just be an absolute leader in your space so that when somebody has a question about anything, for me, if it's podcast related, hit me up. I definitely have resources and people I can connect you to. So that just puts you in a position of kind of leadership and authority that the business can come to you. So once you kind of adapted, like, okay, now I have to become a media company. So it really does take a lot of time to produce all the content, to make sure you're positioned in the marketplace the way that you want to, be very intentional about that. And hopefully you kind of can attract like kind.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for that. Now you've written that the story is the founder's superpower before AI even enters the picture. Now, from your perspective, where have you seen AI flop in marketing because the story wasn't clear yet?
Ooh, where's AI flop? Boy, it flops all over the place, doesn't it? The AI slop is my favorite term. There's a lot. I mean, I demo tons and tons of tools. Sometimes they get it wrong by being too robust. There's just too much going on. Generally, as a rule of speaking, when I'm building with AI, I have kind of some UI guidelines and some rules I set for myself.
Sure.
The first one is I want one button to do everything. The second one is typing sucks. I don't want to have anybody type. And then the third is I want the AI to work like magic in the background, and I don't need to know. You know what I mean? I just want to hit a button until everything is fixing my problems. Now, So I kind of will now judge other AI tools to that standard. It's like, man, there's too much going on here. I got to look at 2 different menus and dashboards and tie
Mm,
the API to this and that. I'm bored
sure.
already. I kind
Okay.
of believe that the future of software is going to be like all these micro softwares that ultimately you could build yourself, but you don't because it's just right there in front of you. So I'm just going to use this for this one little thing, and I'm just going to hit a button until it fixes everything I need it to. So when um, AI, is dropping the ball, I think it's trying to be more like a conventional SaaS product. And it's
Right.
so early right now in AI and so exciting that we really don't know what any of this stuff is going to be, and this goes from like just the way we're interacting, again, kind of like the assumption that typing sucks. I have a vision for the future where it's not all glowing rectangles. You know what I mean? Like I kind of feel, especially lately, just like kind of trapped to this desk. I mean, I got the camera staring at me. I got the microphone in front of my face. I got blue blockers because I'm getting radiated from the lights and the screens. It's like, this is no way to live, you know?
Sure.
I like to think about like Tai Chi, how Tai Chi will talk about, you have like this energy ball at your core,
Mm,
and everything you
yeah.
do is kind of like around this energy ball,
Sure.
which is just kind of like, I think, like a romantic way to talk about how, like, like when we were caveman, how we would go hunting. You just find like a stone about this big and lift it over your head and throw it at something. Like, that's what we were built for. Like these little movements with our fingers, this isn't good for us. It's not good for our brains.
Sure.
So, I'm excited to see how human computer interface is going to evolve. And I think it's going to happen very quickly. Very
Sure.
soon, very, very soon, we're going to have houses full of robots doing single tasks for all kinds of different stuff. And it's going to free up our time to, like, I don't need to be sitting down. I mean, I don't have to be on a treadmill in front of my desk. It's like one of the most sad things that happens. Now, I love doing that because it helps you burn a couple of calories, but I'm like, God dang, I look like a hamster in a cage, like like where's my food pellet, and just go lick the water bottle, you know so what I'm hoping is that AI is going to save us from the big flop, which is kind of this paradigm we're stuck in now.
Mm,
I know that
mm.
was a little tangential to the question, but a rant
Absolutely
nonetheless.
beautiful tangent. Appreciated every moment of it. Which leads me to ask: do you practice Tai Chi, by the way?
I don't. I'm a longtime meditator and martial artist. I
Ah,
train jujitsu and capoeira.
all right. The reason why I asked because I almost kind of picked up the way you were describing, well, the hand motions when you were talking about Tai Chi. I kind of suspected you did some sort of martial arts. I mean, I don't do any. I just watch it on TV, but I kind of picked that up. But do you still? I know that we're gone off on a tangent here. Do you still actively practice martial arts, or is that sort of all packed up now?
Mostly it's yoga now. I
Okay.
trained jujitsu for probably 14, 15 years, and over the time picked up uh some injuries, but also, knock on wood, I did pretty well to like not get anything too severe. So I kind of felt like, I'm gonna get out while the getting's good. I still roll and stuff with the boys every once in a while, but like real hard active training, nah,
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not here for that. Let's flow roll is what I want. Um, and with capoeira, I still go pretty hard in that.
Yeah.
But it's not quite as dangerous, and it has different kind of danger associated with it. And there's a lot of different things in capoeira. For people that don't know, it's a Brazilian martial art that looks a lot like breakdancing, but it's all done to music, and everyone kind of like, you're wrapped in a holder, so everyone's in a circle, and the two people that are in the holder are kind of
Yeah.
sparring, and then everyone on the
Yeah.
outside is singing, clapping, or playing musical instruments. So it's much more communal. I mean, where even if you're injured, you can still sing and play.
Right. Okay.
So I find myself training a lot more of that, and then just doing a lot more of yoga, which has been really restorative. But honestly, I'm kind of looking for something new. I don't know if you do anything fun to train, but I'm really open to some new stuff right now.
All right, awesome. I mean, myself, I just hit the gym weights and the occasional punching bag. But yeah, no, definitely not as exotic as kind of the stuff you do. So that's really good. So thank you for allowing us to go on that tangent. All right, okay. So, um, the next question: when you prepare a client for a big podcast opportunity, what do you need 48 hours before recording to guarantee success? As in, what single habit separates a founder who capitalizes on podcast from one who wastes a chance? If you get what I'm asking.
Absolutely. I think the most important thing is nerves are going to come up, butterflies are going to come up. It happens to me. You get stage fright. You're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How should I prepare? And ultimately, you don't need to prepare. You've been talking your whole life. What you need to do is feel good. So that means different things for different people. Now, what I want to make sure people, they look good, they sound good, they feel good. And if all those things are in place, they're comfortable. And when they're comfortable, they can just riff. And when you're riffing and just talking, a magical thing emerges from a conversation, which is the spontaneity, which is kind of like the synthesis, the point, counterpoint synthesis. You start kind of circling up and like finding this rhythm inside the conversation. And what you get is like content that's absolutely electric. And the reason why it becomes super sticky and addictive is because sometimes your best material comes out of that. Now, this was given to me from a musical perspective because I'm a jazz guy. I
Okay.
love jazz music, and jazz is not necessarily something that's
Yeah.
been recorded. Rather, it's something that happens organically.
Spontaneous. Yeah.
So like you have, there, everybody learns the standards in jazz, and you have a head. So it's like, okay, you got the first 8 bars of the song, and then just off. And now everyone's just improvising. And what happens is, especially if you have like a really tightly linked a group that really understands each other within that conversation of music, then they're inspiring people with like phrases, and they're inspiring like tags, and they can do callbacks to each other, and like this really magical thing happens. So for me, what I want to make sure, if I'm helping somebody prepare, it's like, dude, you're fine. Okay, look nice, have the right lighting, have the right camera, make sure you're excited about the microphone you're using, show up, be loose and relaxed, lucid, and just let it rip, and then let the conversation evolve and judge it afterwards, but try to get out of your head as much as possible. Now it's tough, you know every once in a while. It's happened to me a couple of times, and not in podcasts necessarily, but in like big Zoom presentations where like
Yeah.
I'll be speaking about podcasting or something, and there's 100 people on the Zoom, and they all just have, shark eyes, and they're just like reading email, and I have to like somehow like bring them back into the conversation.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
I'm starting to like get goosebumps thinking about it now. I mean, I'll almost go into like full panic mode, doing that. I can't even remember my middle name. So that happens.
Fair
And that
enough.
would be more like crisis aversion. And then if you get into that place, breathe deeply. You can fake maybe something's wrong with your camera, turn it off for a second, do 10 push-ups, you'll be back on track in no time.
Golden tips there, everyone. So listen to that. If you get really nervous, switch off the camera and do 10 push-ups. Cool. Okay, thanks for that. Okay. McKinsey says companies growing 50% year on year hit the first operational crisis within the first 18 months. So, from your perspective, when demand spikes, say double bookings, what part of the process or your process tends to wobble first from your perspective, opinion, experience, etc.?
Typically it will be just, trying to, hire the right people at the right time without
Mm,
compromising quality.
okay.
When you're doubling growth like that, you're moving really quickly. You're like, oh my gosh, we have to like double body count now. Like, how are we going to do this? And the tendency is to start making concessions in your hiring process and be like, they're not perfect, but they could probably do it. Let's bring them in.
Mm,
Don't do it. Don't do it. Hiring correctly, especially if we're talking about smaller organizations. Now, I'm a startup guy, so I'm usually always starting with a couple of people and growing from there and seeing. And when you have a smaller organization, it's absolutely detrimental that you get the first few hires right and you keep hiring right consistently. Now, the way I'm thinking about it now is also like, how do you weave in, outsource support and AI into this configuration? It actually makes hiring even more complicated because now they need to have core competency in the task that needs to be accomplished, but also do they have the competency to manage an outsourced team, to work remotely, and to also be continuously innovating with automations and different AI tools to make them, be able to 10x their productivity in the next 12 months. So to me, that's been like the hardest thing. Explosive growth, so fun. And boy, if anybody's in that right now, I know you're having such a good time and these problems are so exciting. Hold on to that. It doesn't last forever. But if and let me know too, I'll help you celebrate those wins, because that's a good problem to have. But
Absolutely.
really, like, staffing on that kind of explosive growth can be really challenging.
Sure. And here's kind of like a follow up. So let's say if two podcast potentials say yes at once, how do you prioritize which one to take?
At the same time, I would take them both.
Yes.
I mean,
Oh, you take them
let's
both?
go.
Okay, fair enough.
I'd take them both.
I thought that's what you meant, but I thought, let me just double check that's what you actually meant. Fair enough. Well, there you go. Don't pick one, pick them both. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, keep it going.
Cool. So, you talked, previously about, KitCaster being acquired by Moburst. What surprised you the most about integrating booking ops with a larger PR machine? And what playbook emerged that others can learn from? So, story time, if you can, if you've got a story for us.
Absolutely. KitCaster was a result of my co-founder Brandy and I, and our relationship. So at the time, I had a podcast called Denver Business Podcast, and I had an agency, a go-to-market agency here in Denver. And Brandy was also here in Denver and had a PR agency, and she would pitch her clients to my podcast, and it was great. So we clicked, and I just thought the service that she was providing me was extraordinary. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I don't even have to try. You're just bringing people to my doorstep. I loved it. So we were, kind of getting lunch, and we're like, let's see if there's a product here. Like, maybe we can productize this, so we kind of invented the category, that we didn't know which tools to use. We didn't know where we could find the information. And a couple of things kind of came together quickly. We tried Pipedrive at first, and we're like, nah. HubSpot ended up being a good tool for us for what we are working on, So from the beginning, because both of us had independent companies and we're kind of lifelong startup people, we're like, oh, well, we're obviously going to build this to sell this. What we're going to do is do one thing, be the best in the world at it, and then find somebody who sees this as a great addition to their larger agency. And we made that rule early on because both of us had experience in the agency world, where what you end up doing is just following the dollar sign. So if you got an SEO agency and one of your clients is like, hey, can you do social media? You're like, sure. Okay. And you do social media. And they're like, hey, can you do app, optimization? You're like, absolutely, we can. And now you're just like spread out. You end up with 12 different clients with 12 different services you're doing for them. You're spread so thin, your head's about to explode. What I wanted to do, and also you end up with like 3 or 4 really big clients that are like 80% of your business, and you're totally leveraged to them. And in my experience, companies that see that leverage, they use it to their advantage and can be, we'll say, distasteful. So I was like, yeah, we're not doing that. We're doing one thing. We're going to get lots of clients around that one thing. We're going to become the absolute best in the world, and then we're going to sell the company. So, we closed the deal in April, and probably about 6 months prior to that, we're like, okay, you know what? This feels like a good time. We got a business broker, and started shopping around. We had probably 5 or 6, letters of intent, and from different, whether it was private equity or we had individual operators. I felt kind of bad. There was one gal that we didn't even take her LOI, but she was like, she was looking for like getting a loan and wanted to pick up an agency. And she was like, yeah, I want to operate it. And I was like, well, have you had any experience in an agency? And she's like, no. And I was like, oh, my darling, you do not want to do this. You do not want any part of this. So thank you, but no thanks. Yeah. So we ended up with, 5 or 6 LOIs. Moburst being really the strongest contender for a lot of reasons, largely because they're very, very good, very, very respected in what they do. And they could see the immediate value add that we brought. It's been an absolute, just like perfect match. I love working with Moburst and working for them. They're my boss now, which feels pretty wild to have a boss after 15 years. That being said, I'm also a partner in the company. But there's it's a much larger organization. So I have, a direct report, which is also great. So, it ended up working out almost to script how we planned it from day one. And it took about 5 years to get there.
Wow. That's not a long time. So I suppose what you're talking about growing really quickly, you knew what you're talking about, because 5 years to build something, scale it and sell it for what I imagine for good money, it's not child's play, I would imagine.
Very exciting and very, very satisfying for that to happen. And largely because it comes out of the ashes of so many broken projects and losses, just
Sure.
one loss after the other for years.
Mm.
But again, it
Mm.
comes down to that kind of sense of experimentation, which is what I'm all about, which is like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about that? And I think I probably learned that from music. When I was a musician, I released 3 records, and one of them did pretty good in college radio and stuff. And the songs that were really good were actually nothing like the other songs that we made, because I was kind of like, I think a little bit too artsy, thinking like, you're going to get what I want to give you, as opposed to being like, what do you like? I'll do more of that. If I had a chance to go back, I would I would have made just like shiny sounding pop songs that everyone liked. I could put a weird bridge in there if I needed to for myself, but what are you doing? So business gives you
Sure.
this opportunity, like, hey, go out there and build something that people like. If they don't like it, just switch, find what they do, you know?
So, quick question: is there anything that you don't do? Because you do capoeira, you fly fish, you write music, jazz musician. So, is there anything that you don't do?
Yeah, I don't do anything with heights. You're not going to catch me. I'm not doing anything like that. I mean, Colorado again, maybe mountain climbing and stuff. Nope, nope. Even alpinism, I'm not doing that. I get scared of like lightning, I don't like
Really?
lightning. Yeah,
Okay,
I don't like that at all.
fair enough.
So yeah, there's a lot I don't do.
That you don't do. Okay, good. So the rest of us feel, like we're not left behind in the dust and we're normal as well. So that's fine. Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, you
So
know what? I'm
yeah,
I'm not snowboarding anymore either. I don't do that. I
really.
used to,
Well, you
but
said
not
anymore,
anymore.
so that means you did snowboard.
Yeah, for sure, but not anymore. It's over. No more.
I don't worry, we're not going to dig into that and dig up past trauma. So I think if you say no more, no more, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
All right.
Okay. Now, if you could track only one metric to prove podcasts move revenue, what would it be? And which one trusted KPI no longer seems to? Okay, let's break it down so I don't overload you too much. So the first part of the question is, if you could track one metric to prove podcasts move revenue, what would that metric be?
Very hard to put it onto a spreadsheet. I would just say it's in your gut. Either if you're hosting a podcast or you're a guest on a podcast, if this is a driver for you and not a drainer, follow it.
Sure.
It takes a long time. That's why I say that. If you're looking for, if you're looking for conversion metrics, it's really hard to come by in podcasting. But if you're the kind of person that never shuts up and everyone you love around you is getting irritated because you won't stop talking about your projects, podcasting is for you, because you get to find all the other people that are excited about their projects and you get to talk about it with enthusiasm. So it's very hard. The most important KPI, boy, it's intangible. It's just like, this feels good. And if that's you, then keep going, because everybody starts with their YouTube channel with 0 subs. Everybody starts their podcast with 0 stubs. Everybody starts their newsletter or whatever, their TikTok, all that starts at 0. And you have to put a lot out there and not a lot comes back, So, if my words of encouragement for people getting started with podcasting or podcast guesting is like, just be, gracious to yourself, acknowledge that it's very difficult, and resist the urge to look for return or, judgment at all until you've published 100 pieces of content. That might be 100 shorts, that might be 100 episodes, that might be 100 guest spots. Until you've reached then, just use it as a big science experiment. And if your gut's telling me this is fun, I'm enjoying this, write it out.
I think what you said is nearly philosophical in the sense where you're talking about, because we all know about tangible and intangible business assets, but now you're talking about tangible and intangible KPIs. And I've never heard that before. So I think that's actually, now that I'm sort of taking in what you've said, I think that makes a lot of sense. So basically, you can't complain it's not working until you've at least done 100 episodes of something, essentially, because that will help you define whether you actually enjoy it or whether you're just trying to make a quick buck, like looking for a quick return, which, like you said, ain't going to happen.
It ain't gonna happen. Yeah. And if you're not enjoying it, I mean, you find that people do 7 episodes, they're like, this is no return. And really they're just rationalizing in their gut. They're like, I don't like this. And so yeah,
Mm,
stop. It's no big deal at all. Just be like, I don't like it. Just keep it moving, try something else, you know. But if you do, like, stick with it. Don't look for that out external validation. Just keep it fun, you know, keep it moving, have a good time with it. And I think it'll, well, put it this way, you know, there's founders and business owners listening to this podcast. They know exactly how hard it is, you know, to do what we do. It's torture, and sometimes, and it's a lot of times it's just like monotonous, boring, terrible slog. You're dealing with people and their issues and their everything, taxes and all this stuff. It's like business can be like a real downer, you know,
mm,
and none of us got into it for that. You know, we like to celebrate the wins. We like doing stuff that's like exciting. We like having a mission and bringing people along to like execute on the mission. That's exciting, you know. So podcasting done right, I think gets to like, it gets to feed that fire a little bit when everything else feels like a boot on your neck. Like, this can be your point of liberation. This can be your exciting moment in your week. At least that's what I
makes
hope it
sense.
is for the folks that we work with.
Sure, sure. No, it makes perfect sense. And we're about to wrap it up because I was like, try to keep it so 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm just watching the clock here. So I guess well, 2 questions to go. So thinking about where you want to be in the next 2 years, what would you say are kind of the challenges or bottlenecks that you're experiencing that's kind of hamstringing you from getting there or getting there as quickly as you'd want to?
For the next 2 years, you know, I've got a lot of plans. I think when I'm looking honestly about bottlenecks right now, um, I think when I have been very effective, it's when I'm not analyzing too much. I'm moving quickly and I'm making decisions quickly. Um, as ironic as it is, you know, that AI is supposed to be such a big time saver, what I found is that it hasn't done that. Rather, it definitely has 10x my output, but it's also created a little bit of apprehension and tension and indecision, because I'll be like working on something, be like, hey, I bet you there's 5 tools that can do this faster. And then I take the time to go look at the tools, or I want to like double check everything before I do something, you know, which to me just feels like noise. It feels like indecision to me is kind of just a momentum wrecker, you know. So those are the bottlenecks. Like, I'm talking about like right now, what I was thinking about this weekend is like, okay, Ryan, you're gonna get rid of a lot of stuff in your inbox. You're gonna, you know, unsubscribe from a bunch of stuff. You are going to go on a massive information diet, and you're just going to rip and just make decisions quickly. Trust your people are going to like make good decisions given to them. um, Let them know that it's going to be a little bit clumsy and you're a little bit unorganized right now, because that happens at times. Uh, I think being a process and systems person, I want to be able to deliver an SOP that's bulletproof. And I would say 90% of the time I do. But the other 10% of the time, I'm going to go to my team and be like, hey, here's a sketch of the SOP. I don't have time to finish it. Please finish it for me and then execute the task. And, you know, if I think I can just say for myself, you know, when I trust the team to be able to execute on what I'm trying to get done, they do every single time. So it feels good.
Good, 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 good. Um, Ryan, this has been an absolute masterclass. But before we close, what is the one thing that you want potential customers or the world at large to know about you and what you do?
What do I want the world to know about me? Mostly that I'm a curious person, and I'd probably reverse the question right back to them. You know, I think if I could be a mirror and just be someone that you could expect, um, that would be great, and hopefully I can bring something good out of other people. You know, I think about that a lot, because yeah, you know, I'm kind of like a personal branding guy, you know. So I want my whole image, you know, I wear a white t-shirt, I got a little button up here, like a little clean cut. Like, if I could just
Yeah,
look like somebody's friend or their uncle or their dad or their brother, but they're like, you remind me of my, boom, I know I'm in the
yeah,
right position.
nice.
I this is after a half hour of telling you everything about me.
Yeah.
but ultimately, if I would like people to know about me, that I'm really interested in them, and if I can bring out the best in them, make them feel good, then I feel good about it.
Brilliant stuff. Ryan, thank you so much for sharing your insights. For those listening, you can learn more about KitCaster at kitcaster.com and about Wildcast at gowildcast.com. And this is it again for an episode of Advantage Point. Now, I know Ryan is a stickler for time, so I did cut it down, but if you'll agree, hopefully you'll agree to join us again where we can sort of get more industry insights and sort of his own experience. As you can imagine, he's done everything from capoeira to jazz music. So I know for sure we didn't get everything that we'd want to out of this sort of 30-minute stint, but hopefully I'm sure you guys can maybe spam the comments and get him to come back and join us once more just to give us more insight into what he does. But that's it for this episode of Advantage Point. So if you found today's conversation useful, share it with your team, subscribe for more growth lessons from the front lines, and until next time, thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.